Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, fellow citizens, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization. This podcast and everything our organization does, from our wonderful website to our text messages, our emails, this podcast, our social media, and the donations we make, significant donations we make to other conservative causes, are all paid for by the generous donors to the We the People Convention. And we thank all of you who've been supporting us over the last 16 years now. If you can afford to help us, please go to wethepeopleconvention.org and give what you can. We would greatly appreciate it. I want to welcome those of you who've been with us for these last 16 years, who follow us weekly. Thank you for taking your time to tune in. As you know, this is a weekly news summary program in which we look at what's happened and then we analyze how it affects our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Then we actually take action to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. For those of you who are new, who are joining us from our growing audience on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, welcome to all of you as well. We're sure glad that you've decided to come and get informed about what's going on in our nation, getting rid of the propaganda, focusing on things that are real and things that really affect you. Now, let me be clear. I'm not here to entertain you. This isn't an entertainment show. I'm here to inform you. I'm here to give you perspective. I'm here to give you truth, to help you act this week, literally right now, to take action to protect our great republic. And so this show, we're going to get started real fast, and we're going to get into this really quick. Now, there's a lot of breaking news that's really exciting and all that, and we'll get to that. But we're focused here about you and I, about we the people, and what we do to make this nation great. And that's the point. You're not a spectator, you're a participant. All Americans must participate in our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and in our self-governance. And the call to you now has never been greater, never been greater. And we're going to talk about that right off the bat here. So I'm going to lead with what I think was a story that many of you picked up on but didn't see the significance. Trump unveils $90 billion in energy and AI investments for Pennsylvania during the summit in Pittsburgh. That actually ended up being $92 billion. And I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm going to talk about what your and my role is in this. President Trump on Tuesday touted $92 billion in new private data center and energy investments as his administration seeks to boost the nation's power supply amid a push to rapidly develop energy-hungry artificial intelligence. Trump unveiled investments from 20 major energy and technology companies, including Google, CoreWeave, Blackstone, at Senator Dave McCormick's inaugural Pennsylvania Energy Innovation Summit in Pittsburgh. We're back in Pittsburgh to announce the largest package of investments in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Trump said Tuesday. We are here today because we believe that America's destiny is to dominate every industry and be the first in every technology, and that includes being the world's #1 superpower in artificial intelligence, he added. Cloud computing firm CoreWeave announced plans to invest $6 billion in construction of a 100-megawatt data center in Lancaster, PA, with the ability to eventually expand to 300 megawatts. Google also unveiled a $25 billion investment in data center and AI infrastructure in the states covered by a regional grid operator based in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic. The tech giant plans to invest another $3 billion in modernizing 2 hydroelectric power facilities in Pennsylvania as well. So you're going to see this isn't just about nuclear, it's about kind of everything. So there's hydropower. Investments from firm Blackstone also announced they will invest more than $25 billion in building out data center and power infrastructure in the Keystone State. The Trump administration is increasingly focused on the need for more power to protect the electric grid from strain as it promotes rapid AI innovation. This technology requires vast amounts of energy, like double the energy we currently have. While the Trump administration has largely been focused on fossil fuels and nuclear energy while hampering wind and solar investments. Featured at the summit include a mix of power sources. Homer City Redevelopment will purchase $15 billion worth of Pennsylvania's gas for power plants. Energy Capital Partners will put $5 billion into a data center and will also develop community solar projects. So you see, we have hydro, we have gas, we have nuclear, etc. The report found the Department just released a report that I talked to you about last week that said we are in major danger of power blackouts in our country because of our growing need for energy. And the fact that since Obama, since the climate commies funded by the Chinese have handicapped not only us, but all of the West by this nonsense about global warming and the dangers of climate and all that stuff, they've handicapped us. So now we're in a hole. So that's what you need to understand. That's what everyone you knows need to understand. Things aren't okay. Things are not okay. We've got major problems. Our grid is old, and we've only built 2 nuclear power plants in 30 years. We've got to hit this hard, and you and I have to play a role. So I want to play for you this video from Mike Rowe from the summit that is going to speak loudly to you, and that we're going to talk about what your and my roles are going forward. Listen to what Mike Rowe had to say. It's eye-opening, and this will be linked on our podcast page, and you'll be able to share this video, and you should share this video with everyone.
We've been telling kids for 15 years to code. Learn to code, we said. Yeah, well, AI is coming for the coders. They're not coming for the welders. They're not coming for the plumbers. They're not coming for the steam fitters or the pipe fitters or the HVAC. They're not coming for the electricians. You know, that Ideas Festival I was telling you about in Aspen, I sat there and listened to Larry Fink say we need 500,000 electricians in the next couple of years. Not hyperbole. This is me being the alarmist again. There's not a week that goes by in my humble little foundation. It's called MicroWorks, shameless plug. We award work ethic scholarships every year, right, to kids who want to learn a skill that's in demand. These are trade school scholarships. Not a week goes by where I don't get a phone call from somebody like the Blue Forge Alliance, who oversees our maritime industrial base. That's 15,000 individual companies who are collectively charged with building and delivering 3 nuclear-powered subs to the Navy every year for 10 years, right? 2 Virginia, 1 Columbia class. Mind-bogglingly complicated. This guy calls and says, we're having a hell of a time finding tradespeople. Can you help? I said, I don't know, man. It's pretty skinny out there. How many do you need? He says 140,000. 140,000. Now, granted, over 7 years, but they need 80, 90,000 right now. These are our submarines, folks, right? Things go hypersonic, little sideways with China, Taiwan, whatever. Our aircraft carriers are no longer the point of the spear. They're vulnerable. Our submarines matter. And these guys have a pinch point because they can't find welders and electricians to get them built. Where are they? They said. We've looked everywhere. Do you know? I said, yeah, I know where they are. They're in the 8th grade, man. They're in the 8th grade. And the same thing, the automotive industry needs 80,000 collision repair and technicians. Energy, I don't even know what the number is. I hear 300, I hear 500,000 everywhere. So, not to filibuster, but that's the underlying thing that I just really hope people take from this conference. There is a clear and present freakout going on right now. I've heard from 6 governors in the last 6 months. I've heard from the heads of major companies in the country. It's like a memo has gone out. And people are realizing, you know something? We need to tend to this, both on the PR side and on the demographic. I don't know what to do about the retiring demography. I don't know what to do about 7 million able-bodied men choosing not to work. But I do know that the message to the young men and women in this state that a bright future awaits if they would but learn a skill that's in demand, that's going to resonate politically, that's going to resonate practically, it's going to move the needle.
How's that? How's that for a warning? How's that for a call to action? This is a podcast. You can hit pause right now and go back and listen to that again. And you should. And you should then, in our chapters player, on our podcast page by Sunday, you'll be able to send the link to just that video to whoever you want. You should send it to everyone you know. Okay? Now, what is our job? Our job is to recruit this workforce, if not to actually do it ourselves. It sounds, oh my gosh, we need 8 million people. We need all these people. Well, guess what? Guess what? We have like at least 330 million people in this country. We don't even know because we're so stupid. We don't even count them, but it's at least 330, if not 350 million people. If we need 10 million people to do this, and you have 300 million people in the country, that's 3%. You patriots out there, that 3% should ring, that number should ring to you. Because that's how many people fought the Revolutionary War. 3% of Americans gave us this great nation, this historic nation. 3% of Americans are going to go down in history as having rebuilt America and restored our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. You and I need to recruit these heroes or become them. This is not a time for you to sit back and just watch. I asked you 2 weeks ago to go to your local high school or to your local school district and talk to the superintendent and ask if the guidance counselors there are from the trades or if they're college-educated people pushing college for everyone. Did you do that? Did you do that? Then you've got to do it this week. It's summer. They've got a little more time. School's not in session. Talk to your school board. What action are they going to take this school year to talk to every student in their school about the trades and introduce them? You must demand answers. Your taxes fund them. This is the major challenge for our nation right now. But here's the good news. You don't need to go to college for 4 years to learn how to weld. You don't need to go to college for 4 years to learn how to do HVAC. Most of those programs are like a 6-month training program with an apprenticeship. And believe me, there's plenty of apprenticeships because Mike Rowe just told you about the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are needed. We not only can do this, we must do this. You and I and we the people must do this or we're in serious trouble. We've got major enemies, primarily the communist Chinese, who want to destroy us and have come this close to destroying us, which I've talked to you about in this podcast for years. But we're not safe until we can manufacture the things we need to protect ourselves, to feed ourselves, to defeat our enemies. We have to be like our hair is on fire. And we have to recruit the Rosie the Riveters and the other American heroes who came to America's aid personally, individually, contributing their part to save our nation when we were in danger in World War II, during the Civil War. Our time is now. Your time is now. And Trump is creating the environment, and Mike Rowe is sounding the alarm, but you and I can do this. Trump can't do this. Nobody but us can do this. We, the people, must do this. Am I clear? Do you get it? So how many people did you talk to about the trades in the last couple months when I've been talking about this? How many young people? How many underemployed people do you know? People who are working in a restaurant or working at Starbucks or whatever, they can make 5 times the money they're making and have a great career in these jobs that AI isn't going to take. Okay? That's the biggest ask I've given you in a long time. I want you to write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org and say, Tom, I talked to my school board. Here's what they said. Tom, I talked to this many people. Tom, I talked to this relative in my family who's been struggling. Men and women can do these trades. And you don't have to be 18. You don't have to be 21. You can be 35. You can be 40. They just need to understand that there's a purpose for them in this world right now, in our country right now. And you have to talk to them about this being a heroic act. It's not selfless. It's not about they just need a better job and a better life. They do, but it's bigger than that. It's about that flag. It's about us collectively. And Mike Rowe's big on stories. You got to tell them the stories about people that you know were in the trades who make good money and can't find workers and are looking for them. Tell the story. You can do it. I know you can do it. We've done amazing things in the last 16 years, including save our nation. But we have work to do. And that's my message to start. And then we'll wrap more around that. So share that video and share this segment. I'll probably post it separately later. But I said, Trump is acting $92 billion of investments in energy and infrastructure. Everyone in Pennsylvania, they said they're going to create a couple 100,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. Pick up the phone this week and say, how do I get involved? So this is a good story. The race is on to build U.S. copper mines after Trump pledges higher tariffs. And this is the deal. The tariffs are critical. Without the tariffs, you wouldn't have the jobs for these people. We wouldn't have the ability to protect our nation. Without copper, we're done. We can't defeat China. Let's see here. Nearly 6,000 acres of old Arizona farmland, once intended for a residential subdivision, is on track to potentially become a home to the first big new U.S. copper mine in more than a decade. If all goes as planned, Ivanhoe Electric will begin construction of its Santa Cruz mine early next year and start selling copper cathodes to manufacturers before the end of 2028. That is a blink of the eye in mining, where the time between discoveries and production is often measured in decades. You see how this is the changing of the time frame because of the danger we're in? The mine is on an unusually fast track as a result of being on private property along a booming industrial corridor between Phoenix and Tucson. The sooner it becomes online, the better, and not just for Ivanhoe Electric investors. U.S. copper prices surged to records last week ahead of a 50% tariff that President Trump has promised to impose on imports on August 1st. Traders and analysts expect copper prices in the U.S. to remain aloft as long as the import taxes are in place, fetching a big premium to the global price set in London's trading pits. Even without tariffs, copper prices are expected to climb because of a booming demand to build data centers, renewable energy installations, and electric cars. Okay? It's all connected. But Trump is creating the opportunity, and then we, the people, have to fulfill it, right? And so this Tesla's like, oh, no, just like the $92 billion. What's 92? $92 billion is a lot of money. It's a big deal. It's a huge achievement. We can't just blow it off, and you have to tell people about it because they don't know. And you know what else they don't know? They don't know this. Indonesia. Just this morning, I found out there's an important deal with the Republic of Indonesia. The deal opens up Indonesia's entire market to the United States for the first time in history. As part of the agreement, now get this, Indonesia has committed to purchasing $15 billion of U.S. energy, $4 billion in American agricultural products, 50 Boeing jets, many of them 777s. For the first time ever, now get this, our ranchers, farmers, and fishermen will have complete and total access to the Indonesian market of over 280 million people. In addition, now get this, Indonesia will pay the United States a 19% tariff on all goods they export to us, while U.S. exports to Indonesia are to be tariffs and non-tariff free barriers are free. They're going to pay 19% tariffs to sell their goods in the U.S., and we're going to be able to sell goods, American farm goods, tractors, automobiles, electronics to Indonesia with no tariff. Listen what I said. Indonesia has 280 million people. That's almost as big as the United States. Most people in the United States, go ask your relatives, where's Indonesia? Can you even find it on a map? Go look at it. It's in the South Pacific. It's this crazy looking country because it's got a lot of islands and stuff. 280 million person market that we can now sell into. Do you understand how that's going to turbocharge our economy? When all these fools on Wall Street who stole all our jobs and shipped them overseas are saying, oh, the tariffs are going to cause inflation and all that. Bull. It's going to generate new sales and new taxes, so there's more revenue. And that was proven this week. Import data shows foreign producers, not Americans, are bearing the brunt of tariffs. U.S. import prices have not spiked since President Donald Trump's imposition of tariffs, despite critics' claims that the new trade duties would result in significant cost increases for domestic U.S. companies. Data released Wednesday by the Bureau of Labor Statistics suggests that foreign manufacturers are absorbing a significant share of the tariff burden. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that import prices increased just 0.1% in June, which is in line with overall consumer price increases reported by the Department of Labor. Notably, the Producer Price Index, which focuses on domestic prices excluding imports, remained flat for the month. So we're not getting hurt. They're trying to scare you into not supporting Trump's tariffs. This is the magic formula, okay? I don't throw words around here, right? For those of you who are new, we always bring receipts, we only speak truth, and we always bring perspective, okay? So we're trying to tie this all together. Trump's doing tariffs to force people to manufacture here so you can get better jobs so that we can have self-defense and prosperity. It's all connected. And what's the end goal? Growing tariff revenue, court rulings raise hopes Trump could put U.S. on a path to a balanced budget. A balanced budget? Oh, no, that's impossible. It can't be done. No, that's crazy talk. Yeah, except if you're Donald Trump. Except if you're MAGA. Except you're you and me who balance our budget every bloody month for our entire lives. Okay? Considered by some to be a pie-in-the-sky aspiration of fiscal conservatives, President Donald Trump is now raising hopes that he can use growing tariff revenues, rescission spending cuts, and new court rulings to shrink government to put the nation on a path towards a long, elusive, balanced budget. Okay? What Trump has done is we are now at like $100 billion in new revenue from tariffs before the deal with Indonesia, before the deal is coming with EU, before the deal with China, with Canada. Okay? So what we're talking about increased tariff money coming in. We're talking about more jobs. And again, what does that mean? It doesn't just mean you get paid more. It means that you pay more in taxes, income taxes, which helps cut the deficit. Rescission, we're going to talk about that next, where we're cutting spending. We're actually cutting spending, okay? Combined with economic growth of like 3% a year. And by time Donald Trump is done, in just 4 years, we could have a balanced budget. Now, that doesn't mean our debt is gone to 37 trillion. It means our annual deficit of 2 trillion is gone. We can do this. We're going to do this. You and I are going to participate in doing this. And so what did we get this week? After I asked all of you to call your senators and demand that they get back to work, and many, many of you did. But did all of you? Did you? When I sent out the text message on Monday, I talked last week in the podcast, and Monday I said, call your senator today. They're working 3 days a week. They need to pass the rescission bill. They need to confirm Trump's appointees, his nominees. They're not doing it. They want to go on vacation for all of August. No. You called, you took action in defense of your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity and said to your senators, get to work. And they did. And they passed it. Vance had to cast a deciding vote to pass it in the Senate. They made it $9 billion instead of $9.4 billion in cuts. Okay? And then they sent it to the House. And then the House passed it. And I know, and many of you on social media, and you write to me, go, $9 billion, that's 0.1% of our annual budget, and they could barely do it. But that makes sense. It makes sense. These people that you and I and we just got to vote to actually cut $9 billion had never cut anything in their entire careers, some of them which span decades. Do you understand? That's why this was so hard. Because these are the people who defined a cut as a decrease and an increase. I know some of you new people are laughing. No, you can't make something that stupid up. Literally, from the time the Tea Party started till this moment, politicians have said to us, well, we did cut. We were going to increase the defense budget by, 10%, and we only increased it by 8%. That's a 2% cut. No, only in the La La Land of Washington. In your and my world, that's an 8% increase. We actually cut something this week because you took action, because the people that we have scared to death, the Rhino Republicans who are afraid they're going to lose their jobs next year, took action to actually cut something, and they cut public broadcasting, the propaganda arm of the government, the Pravda. In all the crocodile years, in Alaska, we're going to lose. People won't have any news. And they don't really have internet. You know why they don't have internet? Because you frickin' stop them. And they weren't getting news. They were getting lies. And if you go on X or Facebook, whatever, you'll see the lies documented of the just insane stuff that NPR was spewing out. They deserve not one dime of our money. And that was a huge thing. We've been talking about it for years. We got it this week. That's no small thing. That's no small thing. And so I'm trying to put you in perspective. What's going on? We are headed, if we do our jobs, if you and I get to work and get others to get to work and get trained in the trades, we're headed for the golden era. And China's not going to defeat us. We're going to have our own copper and lithium and stuff. It's all right here. We just need to dig for it. We're going to build out the biggest energy in the history of man. But we still got to do it. But instead, we spent all week talking about Epstein and the cover-up and oh, this is horrible. And online, here's the proof. And Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon and all these people, here's the proof that they're covering up the Epstein stuff and all that. And Trump didn't help things. Don't get me wrong. Trump didn't help things. He insulted us. I don't want to support if people want to talk about this. Come on. But I said to one of the people who wrote to me, listen, it's real simple. We were here before Trump. We're going to be here after Trump. And all we're doing is working every day to get whatever we can get to advance our cause, which is individual freedom and liberty and prosperity, and to defeat communism and socialism and state control. So we're not going to give up on Donald Trump. Who are you going to bring in that's better? Okay? We don't have to like everything he does. And he obviously doesn't like some of the things we're doing. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we keep moving towards our goal. What matters is what I just talked to you about for 15 minutes. Okay? So, a lot of things happened. Lara Trump came out with a video kind of acknowledging that they get it. Here's what she had to say, and this was kind of like a turning point.
What would be your advice? Given this back and forth, we're just coming off of Turning Point here in Tampa. This was the topic of conversation. What would be your advice in order to take the temperature down on this issue from within the administration?
Well, I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He does want transparency on all these fronts, that everything we're talking about, because it's frustrated him as well. He sat for 4 years like the rest of us did and saw lie after lie and saw our country just being sent down the wrong path. And it was really frightening and very upsetting to a lot of people to see. And I would actually say over the past 10 years, we've all kind of endured this. Prior to that, it was probably happening, Benny, but we just weren't as aware of it. It wasn't until Donald Trump came down that golden escalator that he just kind of blew the doors off of everything. And people started to wake up and realize, wait a minute, things are not as they have always been presented to us. And I do believe that you will see that. Now, as it relates to the president, I know that this is probably not his number one thing he's focused on. He's focused on a lot of other important things. We've got this big announcement with Russia going on, I think, as we're speaking right now at the White House. We have, a Middle East. We're trying to get peace over there. We're trying to make sure that Iran's nuclear arsenal is obviously completely decimated. We want to make sure everything is on the right track for this country. Fortunately, you've seen no border crossings in the last month. 0, by the way. I think that's incredible. No one's talking about that enough. 0 illegal border crossings in the month of June. Amazing how that's all gone. So I don't know that this was top of mind for him, but he hears all the noise and he hears all of the consternation out there. And I think he's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that, I believe they'll probably try to get out soon.
Okay, so 2 key takeaways. Trump hears you. He's going to set things right. He's frustrated because to him, this is not important in the big scope of things, and it's not, okay? And he needs us to move forward. So what did he do? He ordered Pam Bondi, directs AG, to release Epstein grand jury transcripts because Alan Dershowitz, who was Epstein's attorney, came out this week and said, listen, you guys are upset, but Bondi doesn't have much more to release because it's all under seal in these cases that are still ongoing, like Maxwell, Epstein's, pimp, okay? She's in prison. She's still appealing to the Supreme Court. and she's actually asked Trump to intercede and pardon her. And so Pam Bondi, as Trump ordered, went to the courts this week and said, we want you to unseal these documents. And that's where you're going to find a lot of stuff. But you still need to understand this is small compared to what's happening. And then Friday, you got an idea what's going on. First this week, John Solomon put out this story that FBI opens grand conspiracy probe on weaponization, opening door to special prosecutor. Now, the deal was that they're going to investigate Comey and Brennan and the other Russia people, okay? And that's what they were talking about, which is something we've all wanted. And then, people are saying we need a special prosecutor for Epstein. No, we don't. We need a special prosecutor for the whole Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama coup, Joe Biden coup to take over our government illegally. That's what we need. John Solomon hinted that Kash Patel and the FBI had opened up this conspiracy investigation, which has no statute of limitations, can go back to what happened with Hillary's server, go through Russia, go through the Biden 2020 election, go through January 6th, all that, okay? That's what Trump's focused on. So on Friday, last night, Tulsi Gabbard dropped this big bad boy, okay? Americans will finally learn the truth about how in 2016, intelligence was politicized and weaponized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a years-long coup against President Donald Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic. Here's how, and there's a diagram of how they did it, okay? Jesse Waters had this on his show last night.
Fox News alert, we just got a peek inside Obama's black book, and it turns out Barack knew the Russia hoax was a hoax all along, but pushed it anyway to sabotage the Trump presidency. DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassifying pages and pages of documents, showing Obama's intel guys briefed him just weeks after the 2016 election that the Russians didn't actually sway the election. Quote, we assessed that Russian and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. election results. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes. But Obama just couldn't accept that. So he and his staff instructed intel agencies to cook up new reports to support Russia collusion. Quote, after the meetings, Clapper's executive assistant emailed intelligence community leaders, tasking them to create a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request that detailed the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election. Tulsi Gabbard described what she found as a conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. And she says the people involved should be prosecuted and has made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. We knew Hillary created the dossier, and now we have proof that Barack was calling the shots and the documents to prove it.
Wow. Now, don't get me wrong. And if you're new to this podcast, that may be shocking to you. But if you've been in the Tea Party, you've known this all along. But here's the news. We're finally going to prosecute. We're finally getting the documents, right? We could infer it. We could figure it out. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But they buried it all. And they never expected in a million years that you and I would be able to overcome their cheating and their propaganda machine and defeat them last November to get in a position to do this. Now it's getting real, kids. What you and I have wanted all along is what? Equal justice under the law, not revenge. They always say, oh, you just want revenge. Donald Trump's weaponizing the government against his opponents. No, he's not. They weaponized the government against him and against us by making up things that weren't true. And Tulsi Gabbard just gave the proof. Russia was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the U.S. Department of Justice or Injustice and the FBI and the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and the President in residence of the United States, Joe Biden, weaponized our government against us with lies. What we are doing is we are using facts, real information of illegal activity to finally restore justice. Because without equal justice under the law, we're not a nation at all. For you guys who are new, you need to understand something that's fundamental. Until the creation of the United States of America, all people who ever lived were ruled by men and women. They were ruled by kings and dictators and men who just said, thumbs up, thumbs down. Julius Caesar, you live, you die. Our form of government, for the first time, said we were going to be ruled by law, not by men, and equal justice under the law. But we're not today. Well, maybe we are now. Maybe we're a little close. Maybe we're getting there. But for the last 12, 15 years, we've been ruled by men who were tyrants. And most of them were communists, like Barack Obama and Eric Holder and Valerie Jarrett and all the rest of them. And all the commies in the Biden administration. That's what communism is. They want to rule over you. They don't want you to have individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. They want to tell you how to live and make you a servant of the state. What Tulsi Gabbard just released is for the first time is the evidence that you can prosecute with. Now we got to hope and pray that it happens. Right? But here's the perspective. This is the perspective. So online, Epstein. We wanted Pam Bondi to resign. She should be fired. You know, that she covered us up. She completely botched it. And I said she botched the messaging, but I didn't think she should be fired. And Trump said she's doing a good job. She's working on bigger things. Yeah, you think what I just told you were bigger things? Here's a reality check. And I know many of you who are older, particularly on this podcast, are not online. You're not even following Facebook, maybe, though some of you maybe watch that. But you don't have the virus that is, caused by being online. Watch what CNN reported about this Epstein thing.
I think this one surprised me a bit because of all these complaints online going after Trump and the Epstein files. You might think his approval ratings were going down with Republicans. If anything, they're going up. Republicans who approve of Trump, look at our CNN poll. The prior one, 86%. The one out this week, 88% were Republicans. How about Quinnipiac? The prior poll, 87% approve of Republicans. This week out, 90% were Republicans. If anything, Donald Trump's approval rating has gone up since this whole Epstein saga started. He is at the apex, or close there too, in terms of his popularity with Republican voters, Epstein files, complaints, or not.
You just proved that not everything online is real in real life.
Who knew?
Amazing.
Twitter and X are not reality.
Is there any reason that you can find that this hasn't taken hold and hurt him?
Yeah. I mean, on X, all you hear about is the Epstein files. But how about out in the real public? Republicans who said the top issue was Epstein case. The answer is one, and not 1%. One responded. This is a great little finding that Ariel Edwards-Levy, who of course is part of our polling unit, found. Just one single Republican said that the nation's top problem is in fact the Epstein case. Not much of a surprise that therefore Donald Trump's approval rating has not suffered with Republicans because of the Epstein case. Because the bottom line is most Americans say it's not high up on their priority.
Yeah, it's not high on their priority list. And if you're not online, meant nothing to you. Yeah, it's curious. Okay, Epstein's a creep. There's a lot of rich people, we think, who were, having young girls, underage girls, trafficked to them by Epstein, perhaps for blackmail. That's important. But in the larger scope, it's a distraction. And so there's your proof. Most of you guys are watching this podcast probably going, why is Tom talking so much about this? And I have to fight, the bias. I have to fight to get offline and to see things and to find stuff like this to share with you for perspective. How many people offline cared? 1, not 1%, 1. That was great. And oh, by the way, X isn't real. Folks, it's very easy to think it is real. And you got to fight it. And you got to shut it off. You got to walk away and you got to just see the real world. And you know what? Talk to people. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your grandkids. Talk to your coworkers, the people at church about things. That's where you get the real perspective, okay? So I wanted to share that with you. But it's real important. Why is this tied to the beginning of the show? Because what Trump is saying is we're fighting about Epstein when he's doing amazing things that you didn't hear. You didn't hear about the Indonesia tariff deal, right? You didn't watch the video of the Pittsburgh press conference about $92 billion in investment because of this noise. And we've got to worry. You and I, if you watch this podcast, we have a key role in helping with the messaging, in talking to your friends and neighbors about what's important, about individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, to cut through the noise and give them some signal. And here's a clip that I'm going to play for you that I think is important. And this is from Richard Barris talking with Steve Bannon. He's the director of big data. And there were polls this week that were concerning. He's going to explain what happened. Listen to this.
Talk to me about, we had Mark Mitchell on last night. He was pretty adamant about these numbers recently, President Trump, who should be peaking given all the, President Trump today went through a whole litany of successes, and they're pretty extraordinary. We're also folks covering, talking to the OMB guys, covering this, which could be a significant vote in the Senate about shutting down or basically defunding PBS and NPR, $1 billion each, plus the rest of the package, the rescissions package. So he's got victory after victory, but the poll numbers don't show that, right? What at least with Mark Mitchell Rasmussen, what do you show?
He's exactly right. This should be a period, especially during the summer, where Americans, they're doing their own thing. They're really only paying attention to big news items. The passage of that bill is a big news item. Within the bill, there are a lot of popular provisions, but the White House did lose the messaging war on this bill. I mean, it's very clear, and that's the press release we have out today will show that, and we're also releasing more. I'll talk to you about those results now. We also asked about the economy and various items in the economy and what the president's been focusing on, and the overall theme, Steve, is this. A lot of his successes are being stepped on or overshadowed by unpopular things that are going on. Fair or not is irrelevant. All that matters is the optics and what the voters see and their sentiment and how they feel. And they feel that the president should have been, let me put it this way. 60 years, best wage growth in 60 years being stepped on by another intervention in the Middle East that very few people wanted any part of whatsoever. We had a lot of other economic data. Then the bill gets passed, right? And it's just one thing after another that is not being celebrated and not being touted. Democrats were able to make a lot of people concerned over cuts to Medicaid and other programs in the big, beautiful bill. And in order to effectively rebut the messaging from the Democrats, you had to be laser focused, but they were not laser focused. They were talking about this with Netanyahu, this one with that one. Now we're going to arm Ukrainians. I mean, Steve, I don't have to explain this to you. And I'm doing this for the benefit of the viewers. I mean, this is not popular. These things are not popular. Tax on tips, no tax on tips is popular, right? Last weekend was the anniversary of Donald Trump surviving an assassination attempt. This should have been a day of celebration. Instead, it was being stepped on by how they mishandled more than that. Not only how they mishandled the Epstein situation, but then how they actually started to browbeat voters for being anyone who was concerned over how, they mishandled this. So the bottom line is, you can't keep peeling off little parts of your base and then expect your numbers to stay strong.
Okay? Does that explain it? Now, you're part of that. He's blaming the administration, right? And again, who's better at messaging than Trump? And why did almost everybody he appointed come from Fox News or some other media source, right? Because they're good at messaging. And yeah, they fumbled the Epstein messaging, but he's blaming them for, just not staying on message, but we're responsible too. You and I have to not talk about Epstein, even if we're upset, and talk about the Indonesia deal. Talk about what happened in Pittsburgh. Talk about great opportunities to be an American hero and get into a trade. See, we have a role, and we're not doing a good job on the messaging. In this podcast at We the People Convention, our entire website and this whole podcast is focused on giving you the tools to message. Our chapters player allows you to send links of any segment of this. In our podcast page, after we do the podcast, we list every story and we have a link to the article it came from that you can share. We're helping you. We're sending out text messages saying, here's an important story. Your job is to tell others about it, to share it. It's not just for you, though I love you and I want you to know, but if you don't share it, you're not helping. That's the theme of this show today. You've got to do that. And so what happens? What happens with this bad messaging? Well, what Barris was talking about is there's polls out from CNN, okay, that roughly 6 in 10 Americans oppose Trump's mega bill. And there's a graphic for those of you who can see it. I'll just kind of, put it out there. And it's not totally bad, but CNN is finishing it saying 6 in 10 people think the big, beautiful bill was bad. Well, why? Because it adds to the federal budget deficit. 58% think that was bad. It removes incentives to use clean energy. 51% think it's bad. That's again, CNN. I'm sure that's skewed. But then their own poll goes the other way. Changes it makes to social safety net programs, such as increasing work requirements for recipients of benefits, including Medicaid. Well, over 53% thought it was good. Increased spending for border security. It's over 60% think that's good. Because Donald Trump supports it, 63% think it's good. So they're putting out this poll saying it's negative because they're in the business of propaganda. But you've got to put forward the positive things like, hey, it closed the border. Hey, increased military spending. Did you do that? Did you think to do that? I need you to think to do that. Why? Because propaganda works. The people who are woke are having they're mentally ill because they're being fed lies. And it's very hard to have someone lie to you every day and not believe it. And here's a perfect example. And this is just unbelievable, but I wanted to share it to demonstrate the power of propaganda. 60% of Democrats still believe Trump colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election. 60%. It's garbage. Tulsi Gabbard just released the proof that they made it up out of whole cloth. 60% of people who are Democrats are that mind controlled to believe that. You have to share the Tulsi Gabbard information with them and say, I know you think this is true. It's not. You have to take that step, okay? Because why? If we don't do things, and look at that, if you go to that chart again, and it'll be in our links, the number one thing that said 6 out of 10 people didn't like the big, beautiful bill because the amount that it added to the federal budget deficit. Okay? Well, this is where Republicans are in trouble. And we're going to go back to Richard Barris again for this clip. This is significant.
I mean, Barris, isn't the problem that, you have the core base of MAGA, and particularly these people, they come out for Trump, they're associated with the Trump movement, they support President Trump, but if they get cynical, if they get complacent, if they get apathetic and don't turn out, we have a massive problem in 2026 and beyond, right? This is one of the reasons I've been, hey, Trump 28, because we have not yet proven we can turn out certain low propensity, low information voters unless President Trump's on top of the ticket. What are your thoughts on particularly about what your polling shows you?
Too few Republicans understand that. Too few people in this space understand that the number one priority for the Republican Party had to be to get the voters, there are several groups that they underperform with compared to Donald Trump. They have to bring them into the fold. Some of them haven't even been flirting with voting Republican. They left spaces blank in districts like California 13, where Duarte went down, but Donald Trump carried the district, right? You look at statewide races like Mike Rogers. He went down with Trump on the ballot, Steve. So the situation for them is a little bit more dire than they understand. The redistricting effort did not go well. And that's why the ones that are in process right now moving forward are that important, because as it stands right now, the voter groups where Donald Trump is now himself starting to hurt with, those are the ones that Republicans need to bring into the fold. And just from the polling this month, here are a couple of groups that need to really stand out in people's minds. 18 to 29 who voted for Donald Trump. Some of his biggest decline this month came from that group. Hispanic men. All right. The groups where he did increase are kind of funny, Steve. Those who have a 4-year degree or more, right? And that's great. Perfect. That helped offset some of the decline with his core voter and his 24 base. But it doesn't matter because they're still voting Democrat at the generic ballot by 10 points. So, I mean, it's like a pointless bump that's going to evaporate in a month or two anyway, even if it lasts that long. They're just happy he bombed Iran for now, to be honest. And they'll go back to disapproving of him. And what will be left is a weakened base. That is something that people aren't understanding while they're, again, attempting to browbeat all of these different groups into submission. 18 to 29-year-olds don't care about what's going on all the way around the other side of the world. They didn't vote for him for that. I mean, it's just a reality that people are going to have to start to face. They're simply out of time. They can't afford to continue to carry on with business as usual. They had to convince these voters that they were becoming more like Donald Trump, not that Donald Trump was becoming more like them. They're out of time. I mean, so there are all these people, the clapping seals and the rest of them, they're going to clap their way right into an utter defeat. I mean,
so there you go. They need to convince people they're becoming more like Donald Trump, not that Donald Trump's becoming more like them. And that's why this rescission bill was key. And Trump is going to put more rescission bills up. And they're going to have to answer that call, or we're not going to vote for them, right? And so this is the dynamic that's going on. But what are they up against? This just, again, for those of you who are new to this podcast, you need to understand the Tea Party movement was real grassroots, meaning we spent our own money, our own time, our own effort to defend our nation, to go to Washington, to fight against Obamacare, to elect Donald Trump. The left, Nancy Pelosi called us Astro-Turf because she's never seen real grass. Going back to the 1960s, when you saw protests, we thought they were real. The TV people said, look at all these people who are protesting. They were paid. It's Astro-Turf. It has always been Astro-Turf. The Tea Party was the first non-Astro-Turf in the last 100 years. They didn't understand that we were real, and therefore we couldn't be controlled. But they are controlled. Here's the proof. This story. Protest for Hire firm offered $20 million to stage anti-Trump demonstrations. Adam Schwartz, CEO of the company Crowds on Demand, revealed that his firm has offered $20 million to bolster anti-Trump protests for nationwide demonstrations on July 17th, 2 days ago. Did you hear anything about these demonstrations? No, you didn't, because he didn't take the money. He stated the offer came from interests aligned with the organizers of the so-called July 17 movement, but declined to disclose who was financially backing the proposal. Stewart explained that his company turned down the offer due to the fact that similar protests in the past, the Tesla, the King's protests, have failed, turned violent, or reflected poorly on those involved. Interests aligned with the organizers of the July 17 movement offered us $20 million to recruit protesters. They're not protesters. They're paid activists, and that is illegal. And any media who covers them, their protest, and doesn't disclose that this is paid for is lying to you, okay? That's why you watch this podcast, to understand this. And I was thrilled to hear Donald Trump signal he may designate organizers, financial backers of violent ICE protests as terrorists, because they are. And we covered the story. When the riots started against ICE in LA and Trump sent in the National Guard, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and those guys said, we're going to investigate who's behind this, who's paying for the masks and the bricks for them to throw and all that. Well, I hope I live to see the day when someone who funds the people destroying our nation are finally prosecuted. President Trump says that if the violent immigration and customs enforcement riots happening across the country are discovered to have central organizers, which they do, or professional backing, he would designate them foreign or domestic terror organizations, similar to what he did with the Mexican cartels in February. I would do that, and in a minute, he said, I would do that. Officials designating an organization as a terrorist group in the U.S. criminalizes providing material support, freezes assets, and restricts travel for members and supporters under laws such as the Patriot Act. The designation also allows for enhanced law enforcement, surveillance, investigations, and federal resource deployment while signaling a security threat domestically and internationally. Okay? In June, Just the News reported that the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, a self-described communist revolutionary group with ties to the Chinese Marxist funding network, has been leading nationwide protests against the U.S. They're a U.S. group. They have a tax-exempt status. What the hell? Immigration and customs enforcement crackdowns on illegal immigration, including demonstrations in Los Angeles that escalated to riots, were supported by the PLS, which openly advocates for the overthrow of the American system and supports communist regimes, has organized anti-ICE protests in such U.S. cities as Chicago, San Francisco, and Austin, Texas, while also promoting Don't Open for ICE campaign. They cannot, it's not about free speech. You can speak, but you can't organize the overthrow of our government and not be charged with frickin' sedition. We got to get serious. And I'm thrilled that Trump is at least headed in that direction. Okay? But that's why there's another big story this week that I had to send out because everybody was missing it. We talked about the big, beautiful bill. We talked about no tax on tips. I did the thing from last week from Stephen Moore about how many amazing things about opening up the energy and the mining and the help for senior citizens on Social Security. But here was something that everyone missed. The big, beautiful bill also made Trump's executive orders law. This is because we're up against these communist organizers and we've had these hard-earned gains and you have to message that. And so why is that important? Well, it matters because executive orders can swiftly be reversed by future administrations. Biden got rid of everything Trump did in his first term on the first day. But in this, by codifying these actions into law, Congress ensures they cannot be easily rescinded, embedding them into the legal framework. And so, in the big, beautiful bill, there were 28 of Trump's executive orders that are now law. that they can't just get rid of with a stroke of a pen. That is no small thing. And some of them were, securing the border, declaring a national emergency on the southern border, protecting the American people against invasion, ending taxpayer subsidization of open borders, implementing the president's DOGE cost efficiency initiative, protecting American bank accounts against fraud, waste, and abuse, continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy, the Iron Dome, unleashing, American dominance in drones, restoring American maritime dominance, unleashing American energy. It's all on this webpage, on WeThePeopleConvention.org. You should read it and share it, because people don't understand what we accomplished, what you and I fought so hard for. This is the result. It's awesome. It's awesome. And so now, while I showed you what Steve Bannon and Barris are saying, that we got problems because the Republicans are still rhinos, they still need to change. And I hope Musk gives us money to primary some of them, like Mike Turner in Dayton, who voted against it. Mike Turner from Dayton, Ohio, needs to go. I hope Elon Musk gives us some money, because we can get him out if we can have a little money and maybe a Trump endorsement. So we're fighting the fight, but I want to give you perspective, okay? Here's two stories before we take the break that are important. Watch this video from CNN.
435 of them. What happens when you go race by race?
What happens when you go race by race? Well, it's the same idea. Okay, House seat ratings with a GOP president, like back in 2005 and, of course, 2017. More net pickup seat chances. Well, last time around, look at that. Democrats were ahead by 33 seats. How about in 2005? Democrats were ahead by 7 seats. What's going on right now? It's actually Republicans. Actually, Republicans with more net pickup chances at plus 12, according to the Cook Political Report, when you add in the likelies, the leans, and the toss-up races. So it's not just on the generic ballot where Democrats are behind their 2017 and 2005 pace. It's actually when it comes seat by seat, you see that, at least at this particular point, Republicans actually have more net pickup opportunities. This doesn't look anything like those wave elections back in 2006 or 2000.
Okay, so there it is. The table is set. We need to execute and we need to message, right? So the Republicans, if they want to get reelected and get a bigger majority in the House and the Senate, they need to cut spending. They need to do the rescission packages. They've got to put the Trump executive orders into law. We have to message properly on what's being done so that people will vote for these Republicans in 2026. Which is coming around, folks. It's coming fast. And then this last story shows you, and we don't like this, but this is the way the game is played. The GOP's audacious midterm strategy, okay? The party plans to redistrict 2 critical states before the 2026 midterms. Now, I can tell you, because we're based in Akron, Ohio, that in Ohio, the legislature has been, because of the way it was handled when we redistricted in 2020, they have to redistrict again before 2026, and they're going to change 2 districts. The one where I'm at, okay, in Akron, Ohio, and the one up in Toledo area, they're going to change it to be more Republican in an effort to win 2 more Republican House seats to make Ohio, okay, 13-2 maybe if they can, but at least 12-4. In Texas, their legislature is reconvening, but they only meet every couple years. But Abbott has called a session of the legislature under the guise of, we need to do stuff about the floods that killed 100 and some people, and we have to act on that. But in that effort, they're going to redistrict, and they're saying they're going to take out 5 Democrat congressmen, House members in Texas. Now, there was a meeting this week because California met with Hakeem Jeffries and said, we got to do the same thing. But in California, they got a whole lot harder problem because they passed a law that put redistricting in the hands of this commission, and they can't easily change it, and there'll be lawsuits. But this is how important it is. I've told you, the Tea Party in 2010 against all odds. Barack Obama had just been coronated in 2008. He's God on earth. They had control of the Senate and the House, and they expected to have it forever. And we, the people, rose up, and we went to work, and we elected the most House members in a single term since 1928. We elected 62 Republicans to take back control of the House and slam the brakes on the communist takeover of our nation. We did that. You, many of you listening, went door to door, made phone calls. There wasn't even texting back then, okay? We did that. We got to keep doing that. That's what the first half of this podcast is about. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I hope you will share that, and I hope you take seriously your role in finding 10 million people to get in the trades and save not only our nation, but the world. That's a pretty serious act, pretty serious ask, okay, of you. So we're going to take a short break. I will be back after these messages. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button, and if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button, okay? The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. Something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. If you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. It's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family, you can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site,
and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if you know, the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you for being with us. I want to correct those videos, and I kind of redo them at some point. We are on X, Tom Z WTPC. We're on Facebook. We're now on YouTube, We the People Convention. We're getting thousands of views of this podcast on YouTube now. We never had that before. Welcome to all of you people. We are on TikTok. We are on Facebook, which we had been off for a long time. We've never been on TikTok. We're getting thousands of views on TikTok. Welcome to all of you. On our podcast page, not only do we have our chapters player where you can look at any story, just go right, you can look down the list, say, I knew that. Oh, what's this? And go right to that segment. And then there's a link that you can copy to text or email that, or put on social media, that segment. Okay. Also on our podcast page, it's got all the stories. It's got links to those stories. And then there's a chapter that says this week's action list. What should you do this week? And as I said in the first half of the podcast, you need to be all over the recruitment of people in the trades. You need to go see school board members in your area, your superintendent, and demand to know what are they going to do to encourage students to join the trades in your school district. And if they give you a hard time, do not stand for it. Organize people and go after them. This isn't an ask. This is a tell. This isn't optional. We are not going to survive as a nation if we can't build the energy infrastructure and if we can't build the national defense infrastructure to defend ourselves. This is like World War II. You need to have that mentality. And if they don't get it, share this podcast with them. Share parts of it with them. It's up to us to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, and our nation. Okay? All right. So we're going to get on with it because there's big stuff that happened. And I want to start right now with this. Court upholds ban on critical race theory in schools. I know, Trump waves his wand and says we're getting rid of critical race theory and DEI, but it still has to happen. And the lefties do what? They sue. So I put this out on Friday because no one was covering this. This is a big deal. Federal court upholds ban on critical race theory in schools. The state of Arkansas successfully defended its ban on critical race theory in its schools before the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Wednesday. A 3-judge panel issued a ruling against the legal challenge brought by a group of students who contended the state ban violated their First Amendment rights. The court said since the free speech clause does not give the students the right to compel the government to say something it does not wish to say, they cannot show a likelihood of success. Tim Griffin, the Attorney General of Arkansas, said, with this ruling today, the 8th Circuit continues to ensure that the responsibility setting the curriculum is in the hands of democratically elected officials responsible to voters, not tyrants on the left who could just impose their will. That's what we've been through. Oh, you're going to teach DEI, or we're going to take your money. You're going to teach critical race theory. That's not the way it's supposed to work. The court just ruled that. If you have a school that's still teaching critical race theory, saying, "Oh, whites are biased by birth, and you should give a hand up to every minority." No, that's not the case. Stop it immediately. And then this was a big decision, and it was alluded to in one of the stories I talked about earlier in this podcast. Supreme Court allows Trump to fire education department employees. The 6-3 ruling reverses the lower court order blocking the terminations. The Supreme Court on July 14th allowed President Donald Trump to move forward with dismantling the Department of Education by firing almost 1,400 employees. The ruling in McMahon versus New York took the form of an unsigned order. The court did not explain its decision. This is key. If we're going to cut the budget spending, you got to cut the government agencies. And what did the left do? Oh, radical judges. Trump can't do that. Trump can't do that. We didn't vote for you for president. You're not a president. You're a judge. And the Supreme Court is slapping down, and the appeals courts are slapping down all these bogus rulings. This opens up everything that Trump needs to do. The big, beautiful bill gives him the money to do everything he needs to do to get rid of these 12 million illegal immigrants. Because why? It has all kinds of money for border security and detention centers and everything. And it allows him to do our defense, increase our defense, and get the manufacturing going. It helps us do energy. And then these laws allow him to actually be president. What a concept. That's what we need. What did he say? They couldn't close the border. The Biden said we needed laws. And Trump said, all we needed was a different president. Yeah, amen to that. Amen to that. Okay. This was an interesting story because I had said that Trump ordered Pam Bondi to order the courts to unseal the Epstein files, okay, that were tied up. Well, also this week, breaking political earthquake. DOJ fires Maurien Comey, Jim Comey's daughter, federal prosecutor who filed key court docs to keep Epstein files under seal. Okay? So this is a person who Jim Comey had his daughter installed on these key cases. Maurien Comey, daughter of James Comey, was fired as a federal prosecutor. It was unclear why Maurien Comey was fired. There was no specific reason given. Yeah, the reason given is we can't have someone in the Justice Department who can help deflect or undermine the investigation that's going to happen into James Comey. Goodbye, dear. That ain't just revenge. That's you did things wrong, and we're about to prove it. And so, again, the court said you can fire people, and they're doing this. This was interesting. RFK fires top HHS aides, no public explanation. Secretary of Human Health and Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., on Wednesday, fired his chief of staff and deputy policy chief of staff, marking the latest shakeup in HHS leadership. Chief of Staff Heather Flick Melanson and Deputy Chief of Staff Hannah Anderson were fired due to a loss of confidence. HHS subsequently confirmed the removals and said that Matt Buckingham would become acting Chief of Staff. So RFK Jr. ain't fooling around. There are people in our health agencies, whether it's the CDC or the NIH or HHS, who do not want MAHA, do not want to make America healthy again. They take bribes from the pharmaceutical companies, from the chemical companies, from the big ag. That's what they've made a life out of, a career out of. They don't want us to have healthy food. They would have had the healthy food, wouldn't they? They would have made them get the dyes out of the foods. And RFK Jr. is just it's every frickin' day. Some company is saying we're taking the dyes out. Trump had a post about Coca-Cola is going to start using cane sugar instead of processed white sugar. He's making America healthy again, but interestingly, they haven't had to go after these companies in court to get them to do it. That's very interesting. MAHA, baby. MAHA is doing a great job, and we're so bloody excited about that. Okay? Let's see. So then we got into, and I mentioned this last week, that Trump has to do something about Russia because Putin just plain isn't playing, right? He's taking advantage of us not funding Ukraine or giving them the weapons. So Trump had a meeting with the NATO secretary, and he basically said, you've got 50 days to come to the peace table, or we're going to just crush you, Russia, with sanctions. He also said that he's going to supply Patriot missiles to help protect Ukraine from the attacks by Russia, but he's going to do it by selling them to NATO. So we're going to get paid. Isn't that a new concept? Wow, what a concept. And then NATO's going to give them to Ukraine. But then, I talked to this before, that Thune has in the Senate this really strong sanctions bill that Trump can play to just crush Russia, basically to destroy all their oil revenue. And that's part of the game. But this is the thing that you got to understand. We've had 1 million people killed in Ukraine, best estimates by Trump and others. And we could have stopped the war, but we didn't. Even the EU this week started to say, well, we're going to put sanctions on, to hurt Russia. Well, why didn't you do it 3 years ago if you wanted to win the war? They didn't want to win the war. They wanted to profit off the war. Okay? And so things are changing. And then this was not a good development. Israel just started another war. Israel this week attacked Syria. Israel has a series of major military strikes against the Syrian capital, Damascus, and against a tank unit that was approaching Syria's southern city of Sawada. The city is predominantly Druze, a religious minority group that the Israelis say they intend to protect. The strikes in Damascus targeted and destroyed the Ministry of Defense and General Staff headquarters of the Syrian military. Notably, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's long-running corruption trial has been adjourned as a result of the strikes. The renewed conflicts, which could reignite hostilities in the region, stems from what began as a Sunni Bedouin attack on Druze population. This escalated as Syrian government forces appeared poised to join the attack, and Israel intervened. In the process, Israel mistakenly destroyed the only Catholic church in Syria. And the Pope was not pleased. And so, well, if it's a mistake, then how come Israel has all this precision, but they accidentally hit the only Catholic church left in Syria? Yeah, big questions. Okay, so again, we don't just give Israel a pass. You call them out when they do something wrong. I think this is wrong. So guess what? Within days now, they've struck a ceasefire with Syria. But this is what Trump's dealing with every minute of every day. It's insane. It's just crazy. And then this is stuff that bothers you. We talked about equal justice under the law. We talked about prosecuting Comey and Obama and all these people and what we hope is going to happen. But if you remember, when we attacked Iran with the B-2 bombers for their nuclear facilities, there was a leak of that attack. Despite all the bluster, the DOJ has not prosecuted a single media leaker. This drives me insane. There's only so many people that have access to the kind of information that's being leaked. Despite numerous media reports outlining actions to smoke out leakers, President Donald Trump's Department of Justice has yet to prosecute a single person accused of leaking information to the press. Axios reports Sunday a long list of actions taken by the Trump administration to dig up potential leakers, including giving the tests, to them to find leakers, to basically smoke them out, lie detector tests. And yet there's been no prosecutions. I understand there's 2 people that they think are the leakers, but apparently they don't have enough information. Well, we've got to tighten that up. Now, Trump and those guys, they've done a great job. They've really worked hard. It's much different than what happened in the past. But here's the problem. Why is all this being leaked to Axios, for goodness sake? Right? Why did the Pam Bondi memo about, here's the Epstein stuff, there's no videos, there's no list, and we're not going to release any more, go to Axios? This just can't happen. It can't go to leftist groups. It shouldn't happen at all. But if it's going to happen, leak it to Breitbart or somebody. Man, This is good. Trump and Ted Cruz unveils bill to designate Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, anticipates bipartisan support. The Muslim Brotherhood is another group operating in the United States that is dedicated to destroying the United States. They're a terrorist group. Senator Ted Cruz is set to introduce legislation that would formally designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, financially crippling the globalist Islamic group and sanctioning its violent offshoots worldwide. It's about time. Previous efforts failed, the Cruz fact sheet reads, because not all Muslim Brotherhood branches are currently violent and wouldn't therefore meet the criteria for the designation. The new bill, set to be introduced on Tuesday, instructs the Secretary of State to catalog Muslim Brotherhood branches that are designated as terrorist groups and designate additional ones that meet relevant criteria, and mandates the designation of Global Muslim Brotherhood for support of those terrorist groups. You got to know your enemy, and then you got to go after your enemy. You can't just talk. The Muslim Brotherhood has functioned in the United States for decades without us really addressing it. Good move, Ted Cruz. I'm happy about that. This was interesting. The Trump administration fires 17 immigration court judges across 10 states. And this is when we're trying to get rid of all these illegal immigrants who have to go through these immigration courts. So 17 immigration court judges have been fired in recent days, according to the union that represents them, as the Trump administration pushes forward with its mass deportations, which are being funded by the money in the big, beautiful bill. And the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers, how are they the union that supports these judges, which they shouldn't have unions? Federal employees should not have unions. That's another thing we've got to do. There should be no unions of government employees, which represents immigration court judges, said in a news release that 15 judges were fired without cause on Friday, another 2 on Monday. Now, there's currently 600 of these judges, and so they're hiring a bunch of judges. But I think what's going on here is that some of these judges are trying to not deport these people. We've had stories about that. So I'm glad that there's an effort where they're really looking at what they're doing and they're getting rid of the people who aren't doing what the president said they should do. That's not your role. You get hired to carry out the will of the president that we, the people, elected. That's the story. So that was an interesting thing to see. Then the auto pen. This week you had all these people brought in to testify, including Jill Biden's work husband. That's a little creepy, okay? And all these aides to Biden to testify whether Biden knew, whether he gave direct orders individually, pardon this person, sign this executive order, use the auto pen. And the New York Times story came out and said they interviewed Biden. He was dumb enough to do an interview where he basically said he did not approve the pardons of the 4,000 convicted prisoners that he pardoned, that he didn't know who they all were. That's got to go. It's got to go. So here's just a summary of this, because there's going to be a lot going on with that. Who knows where it ends up? But this is James Comer talking to Benny Johnson.
Like the rest of us, you read this stuff in the New York Times about the pardons and the auto pen, and your eyes were popping out of your head. Give us your immediate reaction to what's been said here in the New York Times today.
Well, it's finally the New York Times is being a little helpful. Everything that we've discovered has proven the test of time to be factual, from their influence peddling operation to now their illegal, unauthorized use of the auto pen. This is what President Trump said. This is a huge scandal.
If it's determined that the actual president didn't have direct knowledge or give a direct order on an individual signature, does that take it off the books? Again, this is so unprecedented. We're asking questions that have never been asked because we've never seen people run a White House like this before. But in your opinion, as a member of Congress, is that what happens? And then what is the mechanism by affecting that change, or does it just happen automatically. I mean, it seems like we're in la-la land here, but this is where Biden has put us.
We are in la-la land, and Biden did put us in there, but I think it can be declared void and null in a court of law. And that's a big deal, especially with the executive orders. Many of these executive orders were signed in the last 2 months of the lame duck Biden administration, and many of these executive orders, as you know, Scott, were done to Trump-proof the next administration.
Yeah, so that was Scott Jennings, by the way, not Betty Johnson he was talking to. And I don't know, just a side note, Scott Jennings is the guy who's really come out as a star on CNN. He's the conservative guy that's on all these CNN panels, but instead of just being discounted, he wins the debate. Well, Salem Media just gave him a radio show. So he's on nationally on Salem Radio. I think it's at 2 p.m. So he was interviewing Comer there, and Comer's saying he thinks they can make these null and void. Yeah, common sense would say that. And then there has to be legislation to change the 25th Amendment to make sure that they have to disclose the president's physical health. And I'm going to talk about Donald Trump just did that, this week and later in the podcast here. But we also have to get rid of these executive orders that were illegal. So that's a big story of many breaking stories that's just so hard for everybody to keep up on. It's just amazing. This story is significant. 69 DOJ lawyers defending Trump administration policies have quit. And so there's this exodus of people from the Department of Justice because, again, all these leftist judges are trying to stop the Trump agenda. They're activist judges. They're not acting as judges. They're not looking at the law. They're just taking action. They're doing lawfare to stop us. Well, the DOJ has to go to every one of these courts and file paperwork, fighting it. Well, a lot of the lefties who've been in the DOJ since Obama, they don't want to do that. So they're leaving. Well, good. Get the hell out. Let's hire some real patriots. Let's hire people who will do the job that they're told to do because that's their job. Do you understand? You don't work for the federal government and do what you want to do. You do the will of the people, which is manifest by the person we elected. No one elected you. Whether you're a lawyer or a judge, that doesn't give you the right to do the policy you want. And the penalties have to go higher. These people have to not just be fired. They shouldn't just be allowed to quit. They should be charged with dereliction of duty or something. It's criminal what they do. So that's really an important thing to note, that they're quitting, and that's good because we'll probably do better in those cases. There's another historic thing that happened that we've been following, but on Friday, the House passed the Genius Act, and President Trump signed it. And we talked about this. This is the crypto thing, okay? And I did that really good video a couple weeks ago where the guy explained what a stable coin is, which basically ties a cryptocurrency to the dollar. It pegs it to the dollar, so it's not just vapor, all right? And I've said to you guys, what's going to happen with this Genius Act is that people like Walmart and Amazon and X are going to be able to have their own crypto coin that you can buy and transact in and have instant transactions without the Visa MasterCard fees. It's going to save billions of dollars. Now, it also did something that you and I want. It basically stops the central bank, the Fed, from creating a digital currency, because that's how we would lose all of our freedom. But it doesn't go far enough, because this bill still allows them to trace back your crypto transactions. And true crypto, Bitcoin, is a peer-to-peer exchange of money that no one knows about. That's what we need. This is a step towards that, and it's also a step towards making the United States the leader, okay, in cryptocurrency. The Genius Act is headed to President Trump. House Republicans are protecting consumers and creating a regulatory framework for payment stablecoins. The United States will continue to be the world leader that drives innovation. And that's the whole goal. to make sure, and someone brought up a cool key point, that once we do these stable coins, there's nations all over this globe where their currency is garbage. And people there will now be able to transact in these stable coins and that are backed by American dollars, which will bring them into the dollar as their currency. So I just wanted to put that on your radar. I know most of you don't have cryptocurrency. I have a little bit of it. I'm just kind of waiting to see how that goes. But Bitcoin is off the charts. It's gone up. I don't know. It's like $120,000 a coin now. So anyway, just thought you should have that on your radar. This is a good story. Shifty Schiff may be charged with mortgage fraud. The irony on this is so deep, it's unbelievable. Because remember, they charged Donald Trump with mortgage fraud. That's what the whole thing in New York was about. You said Mar-a-Lago was worth this and it wasn't. All BS, all bogus. And Letitia James, the New York District Attorney General, she's now been looked at for mortgage fraud, where she signed papers for a house in Maryland that as her primary residence, okay? And it wasn't her primary residence. Well, now they got Shifty Schiff. Posting on Truth Social Tuesday morning, President Donald Trump accused California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of committing mortgage fraud. I have always suspected Shifty Schiff was a scam artist, and now I learned that Fannie Mae's Financial Crimes Division has concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud. Adam Schiff said his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a communist congressman in California. So he's kind of caught, and they need to go after him. Now, they're going to also go after him in Russia, and all that stuff. But this is a good thing, all right? They cannot destroy our nation with impunity. This isn't revenge. This isn't going after your enemies. Did he break the law or not? Donald Trump did not break the law. The bank said he didn't break the law. The bank said this is all bogus. It's going to be reversed on appeal, but they won't let the appeals court go forward because they know it's going to be reversed. This isn't that. This is Adam Schiff is a freaking criminal, and he needs to be charged because what do we want? Equal justice under the law. Everybody's talking about this. I'm just going to mention it. I think it is big, but it's not as big as the coverage it's getting. Again, CBS is canceling The Late Show with Stephen Colbert in 2026. Well, here's the story. They're not just getting rid of Colbert. They're getting rid of The Late Show, a show that Johnny Carson and Jay Leno and these great comedians was an institution, and the left has destroyed it. Why? They went broke. They went woke and they went broke. They're losing $40 million a year on this shit show. Stephen Colbert is getting paid $20 million to do what? To do Democrat propaganda. And that's why Elizabeth Warren was crying crocodile tears. And all the Democrats were crying, this is a major Democratic institution. It's propaganda. But because you and I don't watch it anymore, and because woke is going broke and CBS is trying to stay in business, he's gone. 2026 is not soon enough. I wish they would have canceled him right the heck now, but they probably had contractual reasons not to. This is also good news. And again, just common sense, which so much of the Trump stuff is common sense, right? The Trump stuff isn't magic. It's not Obama's hope and change. It's 80-20 issues. We don't want men and boys girls sports. We don't want, DEI in our schools. We don't want foreign wars, right? We want reliable energy. And here you go again. Trump ends $4 billion in federal funding for California's bullet train to nowhere. You've all heard about this. They've spent $16 billion of our tax money over decades. They haven't laid a single track for this railroad, this high-speed road that's supposed to go from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Nothing. Did anybody do anything about it? Did the Congress cut it? Oh no, because it's our money. Yeah, Trump just stopped it. And it needs to be in a rescission package, never to be seen again. That's what we're talking about. That's what you and I voted for, right? That's what we voted for. Okay, this was very good. I'm very relieved by this, and it was important because you and I have noticed was Trump was kind of walking with a limp. And then there was some other thing about his hands. So they came out this week and did an update on Trump's medical situation. White House reveals medical conditions causing swelling in Trump's legs. The White House addressed speculation around President Donald Trump's swollen legs and bruised right hand on Thursday. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said Trump underwent medical testing and received a diagnosis of chronic venous insufficiency in his legs, but remains in good health. I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. Leavitt read a memo from Dr. Sean Barbarella, a Navy doctor who serves as physician to the president. Barbarella wrote in recent weeks, Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs, and the president's concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit out of an abundance of caution. Ultrasound to assess blood flow in both of his legs found chronic venous insufficiency, which the president's physician called a benign, common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. I bet many of you watching this podcast have that. Chronic venous insufficiency involves blood pooling in the legs, sometimes causing venous veins, varicose veins, and can be caused by prolonged standing, which Trump does a lot of for hours. Trump also got blood work done, including a comprehensive metabolic panel to complete blood count, a coagulation profile, a blood clot test, a heart failure test, and testing for cardiac biomarkers, as doctor said. All results were within normal limits. The echocardiogram also showed a normal cardiac structure and function, the president's physician said. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness was identified. The doctor also addressed recent photos showing Trump's bruising on the back of his right hand and said the culprits are aspirin, which I take and many of you take, and the president's frequently shaking hands with people. Some of those are real aggressive. People like to prove how manly they are by how hard they squeeze. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of the standard cardiovascular prevention regime. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. The president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here. This contrasts with what you saw in the Biden cover-up. Everything's fine, no reports, no medical information. That's transparency, baby. I love it. That is just so awesome. It's so awesome. So that was great news. Then this is, I know this is, well, it's not small, but it's just beautiful. Remember when Trump said English should be the official language of the United States? Attorney General Pam Bondi said she wants to eliminate wasteful virtual signaling policies across government agencies. So what did she do? President Trump signed an executive order in March designating English to be the official language of the United States. In it, he declared that it is long past time to do so to create a cohesive society and push immigrants into adopting American culture, meaning that we need to become one nation. Well, if you don't have one language, how can you have one nation, one culture? It's called assimilation. Immigrants to America have assimilated. The immigrants that Biden and the lefties brought in to destroy our nation, they don't want to assimilate. That's why they're waving Mexican flags. We'll go back to Mexico. All right? So this makes sense. It's common sense. Now the Department of Justice is following through on the order and making sweeping changes to the federal government and its services to make the aggravating experience of dealing with government agencies a lot simpler. She said, quote, "You shouldn't have to push one for English when calling a U.S. government federal agency." Amen. Hallelujah. As part of new guidance, the DOJ said it was Americans' best interest for the federal government to have one official language. It said the new policy would streamline federal processes, including forms that they do in other languages, notices, websites, and advisories to make them consistently clear and cost-effective. The guidance also said federal agencies will need to determine which of their programs, grants, and policies might better serve the public if they operate exclusively in English. This effectively means that whenever possible, federal agencies will be providing services only in English. If you want to live here, if you want to work here, if you want to act here, learn the language. The Justice Department is also looking to eliminate initiatives from a Clinton-era executive order which introduced limited English proficiency programs. Well, what's this? Clinton, that's a long time ago. What is this? The Trump administration said that LEPs often prioritize multilingualism over English proficiency among new Americans and could impede assimilation and strayed resources. That was the goal. The commies paid the Clintons to do this. Therefore, the government is suspending operations of the lep.gov website and will stop any letters, videos, or other training materials from being produced. These are likely to be replaced with new ones that reflects Trump's executive order of America speaks English only. The government, our government, was taking your tax dollars and making sure that immigrants didn't assimilate. Multilingual, right? Multiculturalism, that was not the melting pot. That's not everybody gets in the pot and the stew changes, but we're all Americans. Multiculturalism was, I want to live here and be Somali. I want to live here and be Afghanistani, right? That's what Ilhan Omar and the people in Minneapolis, they want to be Somalians. Go live in Somalia. Get the hell out of our country. You don't come here and make us Mexico. You left Mexico because it sucks. You came here because we're great. We're great because we assimilate. We use the same language. We have the same values. We have equal justice under the law. You don't believe in that. Get the hell out. So I had to love that. And then I want to share with you, I keep trying to keep you aware of what's going on with AI. Because I shared you the video a couple weeks ago where the guy from MIT was saying AI can't really do what it says. Okay? But now I'm going to share this video with you. It's on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org in the video section. This is Glenn Beck, does a 15-minute video about GROK 4, and he calls it terrorizing. Now, GROK 4 is Elon Musk's version of AI, and they just came out with it, and it's got very powerful abilities. You will not recognize the world in 12 months, said Glenn Beck. This is the last year that we have before things get really weird. It's not, I'm not being dramatic or exaggerating. I'm telling you, the world is about to change so significantly and so quickly, and almost no one is prepared for it. Heck, it's unclear what you could even do to prepare. But one thing you can do is at least be informed and be aware of what's coming. So I put this video up for you to watch. It's 15 minutes long, and it will give you a lot of information. It can be frightening if you don't understand it. I'm asking you guys to use AI, to use ChatGPT, to use Perplexity, to use GROK. If you're on X, you get to use GROK free. There's a little icon, the GROK icon. When you click on it, and when you're looking at stories on X, you can just ask GROK anything. I use it every day, not just GROK. I use 3 different AIs so I can get rid of the mistakes they make, but it's very helpful. It's a tool. It's going to become more than that, but you need to know what it's like so when you're seeing things, you're going to be able to understand them better. This video will help with that. And then I'm going to close with this because it's just great. It's just great. It just came out this week that 50-year-old Gunsmoke reruns are more popular than Disney's Star Wars and Marvel junk. I'm not making this up. If you have Roku TV, which I do, you can go to their channels and there's a Gunsmoke channel and you can watch black and white versions of Gunsmoke episodes. And they're great, okay? Throughout the entire first half of 2025, reruns of Gunsmoke earned more streaming minutes than any of the super expensive woke crap pumped out by the Disney grooming syndicate. Nielsen ranked the top 20 streaming programs for the first half of the year, and Disney earned just one title out of 20. Hilariously, it's not even a Disney original show. Bluey, which our grandkids watch, and we're driven crazy by Bluey, many of you know that, is imported from Australia and distributed by Disney, and it's the one that was in the top 20. Other than that, the groomers got skunked. Despite literally spending billions of dollars on countless numbers of Marvel and Star Wars streaming shows, not a single one placed in the top 20. This isn't a one-time blip. It's not as if Peacock Paramount made Gunsmoke available for streaming and there was a bump in interest. Instead, the Western that has not been in production for half a century maintained its popularity for 6 whole months. What you also have in Gunsmoke is something sorely misintelligent today, especially Disney, and that's complicated but relatable characters who strive to do the right things and are often faced with difficult choices. Gunsmoke has endured because its themes are timeless. It's a mature, very well written, very well acted drama that appeals to normal people because it's about normal people. You gotta love it. You gotta remember where you came from. And whether it's Aesop's fables or Gunsmoke, truths are truth. I always felt it was interesting that the Hallmark Channel was the #1 channel on cable TV because people just want normal. They want to relate to normal people, not the obscure, not the fringes, okay? That's what America's really about. So I thought I'd leave you with that because it's just fun, all right? So we're going to wrap up our podcast for this week. I've asked you to do a lot of things. You need to tell people about this podcast. Why? The more people who watch it, the more people are going to act on the things I've asked you to act on. You need to send stories. Many of the stories in this podcast came from you. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. We read them. We share your videos. We share your articles. Okay? And if I'm wrong about something, absolutely tell me, and I'll come back and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Here's the correction, because you can't lie to anyone. You can't lie to yourself, can't lie to your spouse, can't lie to your family, can't lie to your friends, can't lie to your coworkers, can't lie to anyone. Why? Because it destroys your life. You must face the truth as hard as it is. That's why we're committed to truth. I hope you had a good experience in this podcast, particularly if you're new. I hope you will share it. But most of all, I hope you will act. You will talk to your school superintendent this week. You will talk to school board members. You will make sure they are engaged in telling students in your community about the trades. I hope you will act to reach out to the trade organizations in your community and see how you can help them. I hope you will act by when you see someone at a Starbucks or a waitress at your restaurant, or a busboy, or someone who's doing, gardening for you, or landscaping, and say, hey, we've got a patriotic thing for you to do, and you can make a lot of money. You need to get a trade. Here's how you can do it. Here, call this number in our community. They'll give you an apprenticeship. You and I, must recruit 10 million people in the next year to become tradesmen. If we want America to be great again, if you want to protect your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, this is the #1 thing you can do. Yes, calling our senators and saying confirm Trump's, appointees. That's important. This is more important. If you want to, what's better than having someone to pick up the phone when you need a plumber, or a carpenter, or a roofer? Try doing that now. Ain't too easy, is it? We got to stop this. Only 25% of people go to college, and that's too many. The other 75% don't. What the hell are they doing? They need a trade. 3%, baby. That's how we won the Revolutionary War. That's how we're going to win this war. That's how we're going to win this fight. I greatly appreciate you taking your time to watch this podcast and listen to my opinions about these things. I hope you have a good week. Be a happy warrior. Celebrate the victories and share them with everyone, because you are living in the most dynamic time in the history of the world, and we have a lot to be happy about. Okay? You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you, because God has already blessed America. I hope to see you again next week.